Now let me switch into English because our last guest from abroad, and let me take you in on a short trip to Great Britain. Where is Anthony Crocker? Hi, Anthony. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can hear you. Hi.
Thank you for joining us today. I know that you use brand metrics in Telegraph, so tell us, how do you measure readers' attention?
Okay, thank you for your time. So yeah, basically, I really want to kind of start the journey of how the Telegraph began looking at attention metrics and really considering other ways to demonstrate value in a kind of reader-first environment. For us, that journey really began when we first moved away from an advertising-first revenue, which really focused on the majority of the revenue that the publication makes through advertising, to a subscription strategy. And that obviously is where we're looking to build up, as much of a sort of a relationship with our audience through that subscription model. We started that in about 2018, and the goal for us really is 10 million registrants, 1 million subscribers by 2023. We're really on track to do that, and that's mainly through a big focus on investment in journalism, improving that reader experience so that people want to come back time and time again. But obviously, from an advertising perspective, that did pose some questions for us, and we really wanted to look at understanding where advertising sat within that space. First of all, there were some big challenges around things such as scale that we'd been used to. So from an advertising perspective, we had enjoyed audiences and inventory availability. But actually, we kind of found that wasn't the case once we put paywalls in place, and that we were actually focused on driving towards, a quality audience rather than scale for the sake of scale. Another thing that we did was we took away some of the intrusive formats, which would typically drive that high CTR that advertisers seem to like and seem to think that demonstrate, quality engagement. And that's actually not the case at all. So we really wanted to look at, the fact that we'd made a massive improvements to the way that we were putting together our website, the reader experience, creating that reader-first environment, and really sort of, make sure that we were looking at ways that we could demonstrate that actually that was right for advertisers in the long term. We used certain different external factors for that. So we looked at, for example, the IAB rules of attention, which really demonstrated that actually creating a really good quality reader-first environment was a vital part of quality engagement. And also Integral Ad Science released the halo effect, which demonstrated that actually there was a direct connection between the way that people felt and the emotional connection they had with the content they were reading, and how that then impacted the way that they viewed the ads as well. So we were really keen to look at how we could take some of that and demonstrate to readers that actually our reader-first subscription environment was correct for them. Another thing that we did is that we started to see that user behavior was changing, that actually as we drove our subscriber base and as we drove that subscription audience, that actually subscribers were coming back more often, they were spending longer on the site, and actually they were really treating the digital platform in the same way that they would typically read the newspaper in the past. So rather than coming in through a link on a social platform, they were actually starting off on the homepage and really using that as a directory to kind of gather up their editorial content for the day. And another thing that we really wanted to do was demonstrate that trust was a really strong factor from a quality news brand such as the Telegraph. Obviously, many people will be familiar with the IAP, the IPA, and the trust scores there. And actually, we have seen that trust is in advertising, and trust in advertising industry in general is something that's kind of declined over the years, and that is something that we wanted to demonstrate that wasn't happening at the Telegraph. So we were really pleased to see through reader panel research that we did that the Telegraph drove an 85% trust positivity rating, and actually not only that, but other quality news brands such as the Times and the Guardian were also driving really high scores in trust. Finally, we were seeing some really positive results from subscribers. So those that were more engaged with the Telegraph as a news brand were also much more engaged with the advertising that they saw within that space as well. So they were 25%, interacting with ads for 25% longer. There was 25% longer active dwell time. And also, I think, other indicators such as that trust that I just mentioned, they were 14% more likely to trust ads that they saw in the Telegraph, and 40% more likely to recall ads. That kind of came together as kind of culminated in a project that we called Metrics That Matter. We realised that the industry had been way too focused on performance metrics, which didn't really favour a quality news environment. And also those metrics such as viewability alone and click alone don't necessarily demonstrate how the impact that quality news environment can have on brand perception and brand lift. And we really wanted to look at how we could sort of change the conversation in market, make sure that we were giving people full transparency on the metrics that mattered to really drive those changes. So we started off by looking at the attention metrics. I'll go into a bit more detail on this in a moment. But it was really making sure that we were looking at the full kind of suite of metrics that we had available to demonstrate that people were engaging with ads in a positive way, and not just looking at one metric. We also started working with brand metrics, and that was really important for us to help demonstrate that actually we were making a change to the way that people perceived a brand and the awareness they had for a brand. And actually, it's something that very rarely a market is really focused on or kind of demonstrated in a meaningful way. So we wanted to make sure we were doing that. And finally, we were looking at commercial metrics. So this is a new kind of project for us, and I'll go into a bit of detail at the end about what we're doing in that space. But we really want to make sure that everything that we look at isn't just focused on how we're delivering a campaign or whether or not somebody's clicked on it. Are we actually driving those long-term end goal objectives for a client? Be that somebody booking something, be that somebody buying a product, uplifting sales, whatever that may be. We're really interested in demonstrating that we've delivered on that part of a campaign and not necessarily on a click, which somebody could click on a link and then go through to a website, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to do anything after that. So the attention metrics, there's actually 11 of them in total, which sounds quite complicated, but it's really important that when you're delivering a campaign that you really fully understand the whole scope of kind of what's going on from a delivery and optimization perspective. We kind of simplified that by drawing them down into 3 key areas. So for us, that's making sure that your ad is in view for a meaningful amount of time. Not just looking in view on its own. There's no point in driving an 85-90% in view rate if the majority of those people are only seeing the ad for a third of a second. We need to demonstrate that not only are we displaying the ad correctly in view, but actually it's there for 20, 30 seconds so that somebody has the right amount of time they need to really digest the narrative of that particular ad. Secondly, going back to this kind of idea of the relationship that ads have with the content that they sit alongside, it's really important that people, we're demonstrating that people are enjoying that content, that they're engaging with it in a really positive way, because we know through research that the people then lend that positivity and that emotional connection they have with the content to the ads that sit alongside that. So we really look at things like the active page dwell, the propensity to scroll, and how people are interacting with the content to demonstrate that that's a really positive experience, and that the ads are kind of sitting in a really nice brand safe environment. And finally, and it's something that baffles me that it still comes up in 2020 as an issue, but actually it really is down to our clients and the people that we work with to make sure that they're maximizing the use of everything that they have. So are they looking at interaction? Are they using the opportunity that we've delivered to them to kind of make sure that they're engaging with the brand? We still get static images without a clear call to action, without clear copy, and that kind of doesn't necessarily give people the opportunity to engage with that brand in a meaningful way. We're really keen at encouraging advertisers to make sure that they are looking for every opportunity to create a unique interaction with your brand in that point. So when lockdown came along and coronavirus happened, it was a really great opportunity for us to demonstrate to the market that we were in a really good place to give them the visibility. Markets were changing rapidly overnight. People's interest was changing. We saw ourselves on our website that people were moving away from looking at things like nightlife and culture and travel, and were shifting their focus onto things such as food and drink, and gardening specifically. So we really wanted to show that in that time period, not only were people engaging with that content, but actually the ad that was sitting within that content environment were also benefiting from that increased engagement. And we think we were able to do that through metrics that matter quite effectively. In fact, we had feedback from multiple media agency groups that actually we'd demonstrated that in a detailed way that actually other publications hadn't. So we were really pleased with that. The graph here is demonstrating the difference between changes in things like the in-view time, the hover rate, the attention quality, and the interaction rate that we saw with ads, comparing January and February activity to April. And you can actually see, especially in those engagement factors where, hover rate, attention quality, interaction rate, we did see increases of 20 to 30%. In fact, actually, politics saw on universal touch rate saw nearly a 60% increase in the amount of times that people were touching those ads on their mobile phone. So it was really great for us to be able to sort of put together those tangible results, which really showed that people were engaging with ads within that space. And the other thing that's really important is that we demonstrate that actually those engagement metrics that we deliver our campaigns against, we optimize our campaign against, are really important to driving the brand uplift outcomes. So here, it was really great for us to sort of look at the insights that we have, put together some insights which demonstrated that actually action intent, for example, looking at those that drove the highest action intent, those campaigns also enjoyed the higher hover rate, the higher attention quality, and the higher interaction rate. So it was great for us to be able to demonstrate that's part of the chain, that actually the one thing has a knock-on effect on the other. And it's not just theory. Now we have actual hard evidence to show that if we want to drive those brand outcomes, we have to make sure that we're delivering a campaign against those interaction metrics as well, and attention metrics as well. And the final thing that I wanted to share for you from the lockdown insights that we put together was, a lot of brands we spoke to initially when lockdown first happened in March were concerned that people wouldn't care about consumer brands anymore, that it wouldn't be a focus for their attention, that they would suddenly have bigger, things, more important things going on in life, and actually, they would stop spending effectively. I don't know about anybody else, but I had 2 or 3 Amazon parcels turning up a day during strict lockdown, so it certainly didn't stop me from spending. But what was really great for us was to be able to prove that from our audience that was actually happening as well. So when we looked at the brand lift that we saw pre-March, we can see that awareness levels, we generally drove around a 3.5% increase in awareness. Consideration campaigns generally drove about a 2% increase in consideration. And then action intent was about, just under 2%, about 1.5% increase in action intent. When we looked at campaigns that ran post-March, that's April and May specifically, we actually saw a big increase in consideration and preference. And that could be for a number of reasons. We think that it's because people turn to quality news publishers in a way they hadn't done before. They were looking for reputable, verified news sources to get their news from. It was really important they had accurate kind of updates. And we think that because people had to turn to those news brands, all of the other consumer and data and customer data that we had sitting around that demonstrated that people were doing that, but actually as a result of that, they were more likely to consider or have a preference for brands than that they saw within that space as well. So we thought that was really exciting for us to be able to demonstrate that positively. The other thing is that actually it didn't really affect awareness or action intent. If anything, actually action intent went up slightly. So people, ads were just as effective during that time period as they had been previously, and will go on to be now sort of going into the next phase of everything's going globally. And the final thing that I wanted to kind of touch on was the fact that we're now in a really privileged position to be exclusively using first-party data. So our subscription model, when we first set it out, didn't really think about some of the changes that are going on with regards to cookie locking, but also we're seeing a really big increase in the scrutiny of the way that third-party data is used. There's a couple of documentaries on Netflix, for example, which really kind of are really bringing some of those concerns to a mainstream audience. And people are more than ever really concerned about the way that their data is being used and shared across, networks that they won't have any idea who they are. Our subscription strategy has allowed us to really start to build up some quality first-party data, and so it's great for us to be able to tell advertisers and reassure them that actually we can work with them directly using their first-party data to drive, effective targeting, which does not rely on third-party vendors. That's a really important and exciting development for us, especially considering some of the challenges there's going to be around attribution, for example, coming up with cookie blocking kind of on the horizon for Google. And we launched Unity a few months ago as that opportunity and product that actually advertisers can buy into. And this really also helps tie into what I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, which was looking at those business outcomes. We're interested in working directly with direct partnerships with clients so that we can actually do data matching in a safe environment, which doesn't kind of put any risk to our data or to their data, but actually then can start to really demonstrate where we're seeing a change in things such as purchases or kind of bookings, whatever that may be, coming directly from exposure to a campaign within the Telegraph. And that is it from me. Yeah, thank you for your time.